She mocked me for years in bed, in public, online. Then I found her sexting her boss. I didn't yell, I got smart, and she never saw me coming. The Hastings living room buzzed with warmth and laughter. Soft jazz floated through the air, mingling with the scent of expensive wine and haute cuisine hors d'oeuvres. It was the kind of gathering Chelsea thrived in. Seattle's educated young professionals trading stories and ambitions while flaunting their carefully curated personalities. I stood by the kitchen counter refilling my glass with Cabernet, half listening to the conversations around me. I'm an electronics technician at a small industrial equipment repair shop. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills, and I've always been good with my hands. Well, at least I thought I was. You guys won't believe what Noah did last weekend. Chelsea's voice rose above the ambient chatter from the living room. My wife's tone carried that particular lilt that always made my stomach tighten, the storyteller's cadence she used when entertaining her audience. I froze mid-pour wine bottles suspended above my glass. He decided to build us a bookshelf. She continued, her voice dripping with amusement, except he tried cutting the brackets with wire cutters instead of a saw. Laughter bubbled from the crowd. You should have seen him sitting there with the drill, like a circus clown trying to juggle chainsaws. Chelsea's voice pitched higher with excitement. I swear if we lived in a circus, he'd be the main attraction. The room erupted in laughter, including Mark, whose fence I'd helped repair after a storm last month, and Jenna, whose car I'd diagnosed when her mechanic couldn't figure out the electrical problem. My hand trembled slightly, wine sloshing against the glass. Heat crawled up my neck and into my cheeks. I didn't enter the living room. Instead, I retreated into the shadowed hallway, suddenly invisible to the partygoers. Standing there in the darkness, something shifted inside me. It wasn't the mockery that cut deep. It was the sudden crystalline realization that this wasn't new. My mind flooded with memories in rapid succession. Chelsea's company dinner 3 months ago, where she entertained her colleagues with the story of how I burned a pot trying to boil eggs like someone who'd never set foot in a kitchen before. The Facebook video she posted of me dancing awkwardly at her sister's wedding, captioned with crying laughing emojis, and "This is why I don't take him out in public often." Her latest Instagram post, me sprawled on the grass after falling off my bike at the park. Living with a clown means never having a boring day. Nyanch clown husband. People like us as a couple because you're funny, she'd told me once when I questioned if a story she shared was a bit humiliating. Don't change that. During a TikTok live stream last month, someone asked how she'd landed such a dorky husband. Chelsea had laughed. Who wouldn't want a free toy 24/7? I'd always thought it was just our dynamic, playful teasing between spouses. Now I saw it clearly. Systematic humiliation disguised as affectionate humor. I steadied myself and returned to the living room. Pasting on the expected smile, I nodded along to conversations, laughed at appropriate moments. But something had fundamentally changed. A crack had formed in the foundation of our marriage. I was suddenly aware of the profound imbalance, the fundamental disrespect that had become our normal. The drive home was quiet until Chelsea turned to me with a smirk. Why so silent, still upset about the bookshelf disaster? She chuckled to herself, checking her phone as the stoplight turned green. At home, I mindlessly scrolled through social media before bed, a habit I'd developed over years. That's when I saw it. Chelsea had posted a new Instagram reel while we were at the party, a compilation of 7 short clips titled Husband Fail Compilation. Each clip featured a moment of me being confused, making a mistake, or being mocked. She'd even added comedic sound effects. In the comments, someone I didn't know wrote, "He should totally be in a circus. You're so lucky to have a pet that does tricks." Chelsea had responded with a laughing emoji. When I opened Instagram again later, something caught my eye. In her drafts folder was an unpublished video of me nodding off to sleep after working a 16-hour shift last week. My head bobbed as I struggled to stay awake. The caption read, "The clown robot's batteries died. Should we recharge him for more entertainment, folks?" I woke up at 5:30 a.m. the next morning, long before Chelsea would stir. Sleep had been fitful at best, fragments of laughter and humiliation playing on repeat through my dreams. The revelation from last night felt like a splinter lodged deep under my skin, impossible to ignore now that I'd noticed it. Sitting at our kitchen island with coffee steam curling up around my face, I composed a brief email to my supervisor, requesting 2 personal days for recalibration of personal trajectory. Formal language that would raise no eyebrows but give me the space I needed. Then I created a new Excel file. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing the title, Evidence of Systematic Disrespect. The clinical approach felt necessary, like I was documenting a slowly spreading disease rather than the death of my marriage. Row by row. I populated the spreadsheet March 15th. Chelsea introduces me to her new colleagues as my adorable man-child and pats my head. April 2nd Instagram post of me burning toast. Living with this doofus is like having a child who can drive Vartash or man-child problems. April 10th. Chelsea interrupts my explanation about electrical systems to her father, saying, "Don't worry about him, he thinks he knows things." April 23rd. TikTok Live where she calls me her 24/7 free entertainment toy. The list grew longer than I expected. Incidents that had seemed isolated suddenly formed a clear pattern when laid out chronologically. I wasn't participating in good-natured ribbing. I was the target of calculated social diminishment. Around 8 a.m., I sent a text to Eric Dalton. We'd been close in college roommates for 3 years before life pulled us in different directions. He'd been reaching out periodically over the past couple years, suggesting I apply to Blue Forge Solutions, the B2B software company where he worked as a hiring manager. They were expanding their West Coast operations, and he thought my technical background would be valuable. "You know how many guys are cooler than you out there," Chelsea had said when I mentioned it last time. "Don't be delusional about your league," Eric replied within minutes. "About damn time. Send your resume over ASAP. I can set up a virtual interview this week." I attached my freshly updated resume, then made 2 appointments, a haircut and a suit fitting. I even dug out the small home weights I'd abandoned years ago and did a quick 30-minute circuit. The physical exertion felt cleansing, like I was sweating out years of accumulated self-doubt. When Chelsea finally emerged around 10 a.m., she paused at the kitchen doorway, eyeing my freshly showered appearance and the workout equipment I hadn't put away yet. Suddenly feeling like being a hot guy, she smirked, pouring herself coffee. "Sure, go ahead and try." I met her eyes directly, something I realized I'd been avoiding for months, maybe years. I just want to look in the mirror and not feel like a stranger anymore. Her eyebrow arched, but she said nothing more. The virtual interview with Blue Forge was scheduled for Friday morning. I prepared meticulously, practicing answers in front of the bathroom mirror when Chelsea wasn't home. The process felt foreign. I'd been at my current job for 8 years. Comfortable, but stagnant. Friday came and the interview went surprisingly well. The panel seemed genuinely impressed by my technical knowledge and problem-solving approach. By Monday afternoon, Eric called with the news they were offering me a technical project manager position with a 60% salary increase, plus project-based bonuses. "You've been undervalued for too long." "Noah," Eric texted later, "you're way better than you've been led to believe." When I told Chelsea about the job offer that evening, her reaction was telling, rather than celebration. Her face flickered with something like alarm before settling into a condescending smile. "Be careful," she said, stirring her pasta without looking up. "They might think you're serious now, but they'll be shocked when they see you're just a clown in a suit." I didn't respond. Instead, I simply nodded and continued eating. For the first time, I was consciously aware of how I was removing myself from the dynamics that had defined our relationship. 2 nights later, I was heading downstairs for water when I heard Chelsea's voice from the kitchen. She was on the phone, her tone hushed but playful. "Yeah, he's doing this whole transformation thing," she giggled. "Whatever let him think that. See you tomorrow, send me pictures of the room first." I froze on the stairs, then silently retreated back up. My lips pressed into a tight line, but my eyes remained dry. The confirmation should have hurt more, but instead, it felt like the final permission I needed. Over the next week, I methodically prepared for what was coming. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank. I transferred my digital assets to new accounts. I enrolled in a personal finance management course. I even consulted with a divorce attorney during my lunch break, taking careful notes on what to expect. I considered purchasing small recording devices for our home just in case conversations turned ugly, and I needed evidence. I scanned all personal financial documents, and sent them to a new email address Chelsea knew nothing about. Then on an ordinary Tuesday evening, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line. The message was brief. You should know Chelsea sees you as more than just a clown. Once she told me, I only married him for career purposes, but he has no value to me now. If you want proof, reply to this message. The mysterious email lingered in my mind for days. I didn't reply. Couldn't be sure if it was a trap, a cruel joke, or an actual ally. But it crystallized what my gut had been telling me: this marriage wasn't merely broken. It had been a facade for years. I began implementing subtle changes in how I interacted with Chelsea, establishing boundaries where none had existed before. The first time she made a joke about my man bun attempt at breakfast, I'd simply tied my hair back while eating. I didn't laugh along or defend myself. I just looked at her for 3 uncomfortable seconds, then silently picked up my plate and moved to the living room. "What's wrong with you?" she called after me. I didn't answer. When we were on a call with her cousin's family, and Chelsea interrupted me mid-sentence to clarify what I really meant, I simply set down my coffee mug, stood up, and walked to another room without explanation. Later, she confronted me. That was super weird and rude. "I don't like being spoken over." I replied calmly, "I'll rejoin when I can complete my thoughts." The stunned look on her face was something I'd never seen before. I stopped asking for her input on my clothes or daily routines. I made plans without consulting her. I started making decisions based solely on my preferences. Simple things like ordering food I wanted, watching documentaries that interested me, or going for drives alone. The most significant shift came during a dinner party at the Millers. Traditionally, I'd play my assigned role, the bumbling husband who would entertain everyone with self-deprecating stories or tolerate being the butt of Chelsea's jokes. This time, I simply observed, smiled politely at appropriate moments, and engaged in calm, thoughtful conversations. When Chelsea launched into her usual routine, "You guys won't believe what Noah did yesterday," I excused myself to help our host with the wine selection. Chelsea's reaction to my behavioral shifts evolved predictably. First came the light mockery. "Oh, are we being mysterious and aloof?" Now, new personality just dropped. When that didn't provoke my usual apologetic response, she escalated deliberately, knocking over a glass near me at dinner, then acting surprised when I simply cleaned it up without becoming flustered. After a week of failure, her tactics changed. She made my favorite pasta dish on Tuesday. On Wednesday, she suggested we watch that sci-fi series I'd been interested in. By Friday, she'd planned a weekend getaway to the coast to reconnect. I maintained my new equilibrium, polite, present, but emotionally unavailable. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was protecting what little remained of my dignity. While Chelsea worked late one Thursday, I reached out to my old college basketball group. Guys I hadn't properly hung out with in years, because Chelsea always found a reason why I couldn't attend their gatherings. "Dude, we thought you'd fallen off the face of the earth," Marcus exclaimed. When I showed up for their weekly game, I was rusty but felt more like myself than I had in years. I also signed up for a weekend fishing club, something Chelsea had always ridiculed as peak boring dad energy. The first Saturday I went out on Lake Washington with the group, I sat in peaceful silence for hours, just watching my line and listening to the water lap against the boat. No one expected me to entertain them. No one was waiting for me to make a mistake they could laugh at. The relief was profound. I started calling my parents more regularly too. They'd never said anything negative about Chelsea, but I noticed how my mom's voice softened when I told her about my new job. "You sound different, Noah," she said, "more like you." 3 weeks into my silent transformation, I was organizing our storage closet when I found an old phone of Chelsea's, one she'd replaced last year, but apparently kept as a backup. It powered on immediately, and to my surprise had no passcode. Perhaps she'd never imagined I would look. What I found shattered any lingering doubts. Dozens of text exchanges with someone named Reed, her company's creative director. The messages spanned months, filled with intimate language, hotel meeting arrangements, and occasionally discussions about me. "He's just a front," Chelsea had written. "I'm tired of pretending to be nice to his face." Another, "Noah would never suspect, he's too grateful I even married him." And the most revealing, Once this campaign launches, we won't need his stable husband image anymore. I can finally move on. I didn't confront Chelsea. Instead, I methodically backed up every message, every image, every piece of evidence to my personal hard drive and secondary email. Knowledge was power, and for once, I needed every advantage. A week later, I found an unmarked envelope in our mailbox. Inside were 3 high-resolution photos of Chelsea and Reed entering a boutique hotel in Tacoma, hand in hand, looking intimate in a way that left no room for innocent interpretation. Attached was a hotel receipt with Reed's name and credit card information. A handwritten note in black ink read, "If you need more truth, check the security camera in Section C." I still don't know who sent these materials. The same person who emailed me. Someone else with a grudge against Chelsea or Reed. Regardless, I was grateful. The breadcrumbs of truth kept appearing just when I needed them most. I accelerated my exit plan. I opened a separate bank account and began transferring small portions of each paycheck. Nothing that would raise flags if Chelsea checked our joint accounts, but enough to build a safety net. I used a personal day to view available apartments across town and consulted with a divorce attorney who specialized in cases involving media professionals. Chelsea's growing social media presence meant potential complications. I needed to prepare for. I started acquiring essentials for a new life. A coffee maker identical to the one we had at home. A personal laptop. Chelsea didn't have access to a locking file cabinet for important documents. Each purchase felt like laying the foundation for my eventual freedom. That evening, while reviewing the backup files of Chelsea's text messages on my external hard drive, I noticed something odd, an audio file I didn't remember saving. When I clicked play, Chelsea's voice filled my headphones. It was clearly a Zoom call recording. "As long as he stays put, we maintain credibility with the investor group. After we close the deal, we can kick him to the curb without consequences." I froze, my blood running cold. I hadn't recorded this. Someone else was watching us both, and they wanted me to know exactly what kind of game Chelsea was playing, a week after signing the lease on my new apartment. Chelsea texted me during lunch break. "Dinner at Antonio's tonight, 7 p.m. I've already made the reservation." Antonio's, the small Italian bistro where we'd had our first date 12 years ago. I stared at my phone, recognizing the tactical move for what it was. Chelsea was many things, but never random. Still, I replied with a simple, "Okay." I arrived exactly on time to find she'd gone all out with the nostalgia play. She'd requested the same corner table we'd occupied on our first date. The same Cabernet we'd shared on our 3rd wedding anniversary was already being decanted. She even wore a dress similar to the one from our early days, deep blue with a subtle pattern. "You remembered," she said with a soft smile when I recognized the wine. "I remember everything," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. And I did remember not just the romantic moments she wanted to evoke, but every humiliation, every betrayal, every moment my dignity had been sacrificed for her entertainment. I wasn't there for reconciliation. I was there to end things with clarity. The first 20 minutes were Chelsea's carefully orchestrated trip down memory lane. The time we got caught in a thunderstorm at Pike Place. The weekend we drove to Portland on a whim. Small moments from our history curated to elicit warmth and nostalgia, delivered with studied vulnerability in her voice. I nodded, responded appropriately, but maintained emotional distance. Eventually, Chelsea reached across the table to touch my hand. "I miss when you were you," she said, her eyes wide and earnest. "Happy, sweet, always making everyone laugh." I set my wine glass down, meeting her gaze directly. "You mean when you could make people laugh by pushing my head underwater?" Her expression flickered, surprise quickly masked with practiced concern. "Don't be so dramatic. It was all just teasing. Everyone does it. Not everyone, and not like that." I kept my voice even controlled. Chelsea adjusted her approach, softening further. "I never meant to hurt you. It was just our dynamic, our thing." Before she could continue rewriting our history, I pulled out my phone and opened a document I'd prepared. January 12th. "Dinner at your company. You told everyone I couldn't boil water without burning down the house." February 3rd. Instagram post calling me professionally incompetent at basic life skills. March 17th. TikTok livestream where you demonstrated how I fold laundry like a confused chimp. I continued through a dozen more examples, watching her face transition from confident to suspicious. Are you keeping tabs on me? Her voice had an edge now. No, you just left too much evidence. I scrolled further to show screenshots of text messages between her and Reed carefully edited to protect my anonymous source. Like these. Color drained from Chelsea's face. You've been spying on me going through my phone. I didn't have to, I said calmly. The truth has a way of surfacing. All I had to do was pay attention. Chelsea's tactics pivoted again, her eyes suddenly glistening with tears. I never intentionally tried to hurt you. I thought you were okay with it. You always laughed along, didn't you? That wasn't laughter, I said quietly. That was survival. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine. We can work through this. I can change how I talk about you. You used me as a social media prop. You cheated with Reed. And now you want to salvage things with a nice dinner. And crocodile tears. The calculated warmth in her expression faltered. She set down her glass and leaned forward. What do you want? Noah, an apology. Fine. I'm sorry. I'll delete the posts. I'll be more considerate. Is that what this power play is about? It's not a power play, it's a goodbye. I maintained eye contact, my voice steady. I've signed a lease on a new apartment. This weekend, while you're at your sister's, I'll be moving out. Her eyes widened. You're not serious. The legal paperwork is with my lawyer. I haven't filed yet, but if you dismiss what I'm saying tonight, I will do it immediately. Chelsea's face transformed through a series of emotions, shock, anger, tears, and finally contempt. You think you can just start over? She scoffed. Who's going to take seriously the clown whose wife made him into a social media joke? You'll be alone and pathetic. I didn't respond to her barb. Instead, I pulled out one final piece of paper from my jacket, a printout of the offer letter from Blue Forge Solutions, complete with the CEO's signature and a starting salary that made our current household income look modest. They believe in me, I said simply, and so do I. Chelsea stared at the document momentarily speechless. When she looked up, something had shifted in her eyes. A new calculation, a dawning realization that she'd fundamentally miscalculated who had power in this situation. Noah. She began, her voice taking on a honeyed quality I recognized from her most manipulative moments. We've built so much together. Don't throw it all away because of a few jokes and a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. A choice you made every day for years. I placed money on the table for my half of the bill. I'm done being the butt of your joke. I'm done pretending your cruelty is love. As I stood to leave, Chelsea grabbed my wrist. You won't do better than me. She hissed, the pleasant mask finally dropping entirely. No one will ever love your pathetic, awkward self like I pretended to. I gently removed her hand. That's exactly the point, Chelsea. I'd rather be alone than with someone who's pretending. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not triumphant, not vindictive, just free. The cool evening air felt cleaner somehow, as if I'd been breathing through a filter for the past decade. When I got home, I found an email waiting from Eric. The subject line read, "Only urgent, read immediately." The message inside made my blood run cold. There's something you need to know. Reed isn't just involved with Chelsea. He tried to use your name to secure investment capital for a side project, and now someone is digging into it. Call me as soon as you get this. I sat back in my chair, mind racing. This wasn't just about a failing marriage or infidelity anymore. Something bigger was unfolding. Something that had put me in the crosshairs without my knowledge. And whoever my anonymous ally was, they were pulling on threads that went deeper than I'd imagined. After my call with Eric, I had a clearer picture of what Reed had been doing. Apparently, he'd been shopping around a startup concept to investors, listing me as a technical advisor without my knowledge or consent. He'd leveraged my engineering background to add credibility to his pitch, all while sleeping with my wife. The audacity was breathtaking. I didn't have time to dwell on it, though. Chelsea would be leaving for her sister's place in Oregon the next morning, a 3-day visit she'd planned weeks ago. It was the perfect window for my exit. I spent that night methodically planning my move. No rushing, no emotional packing, just calculated efficiency. I'd already arranged for a small moving truck and recruited Marcus from my basketball group to help. when Chelsea left Friday morning with a cool, "See you Sunday." I waited exactly 1 hour before putting my plan into motion. The move itself was surprisingly straightforward. I only took what was unquestionably mine: clothes, books, professional documents, my electronics and toolbox. I left all the furniture we'd bought together, the wedding gifts, the vacation souvenirs. There was only one item I hesitated over: my grandfather's tool set. The vintage leather case contained tools from the 1960s, lovingly maintained across decades. Chelsea had mocked it repeatedly, calling it old man aesthetic, and suggesting I replace it with something not embarrassingly ancient. When she'd tried to hide it in the garage during a dinner party, I'd quietly moved it back to my workspace. Now, I carefully wrapped it in a blanket before placing it in the truck. Some things are beyond price. Before leaving, I placed a sealed envelope on Chelsea's desk. Inside was a comprehensive dossier: copies of her text exchanges with Reed, hotel receipts, photos from my anonymous source, and a detailed chronology of her public humiliation campaign against me. I didn't include a note. The evidence spoke for itself. By evening, I was unpacking in my new apartment. The space was smaller but felt infinitely more peaceful. No walking on eggshells, no bracing for the next subtle dig or public ridicule. I slept better that first night than I had in years. Chelsea returned from Oregon Sunday afternoon. I'd blocked her number, but my email inbox told the story. First came confused messages: "Where are you?" Then panic: "Answer your phone." Then anger: "You coward." When I didn't respond to any of it, Chelsea took her narrative public. A carefully staged Instagram post appeared that evening: our wedding photo. Chelsea looking tearful but composed, with a lengthy caption: "Sometimes people change when success finds them. The man I married disappeared when his new job gave him a taste of what he thought was better. No warning, no conversation. Just an empty house when I returned. Heartbroken doesn't begin to describe it. Betrayed, abandoned." Her followers flooded the comments with sympathy and outrage on her behalf. A few asked for details, which Chelsea supplied in vague but emotionally charged responses, painting herself as the blindsided victim. I didn't respond immediately. I waited 3 days, during which Chelsea escalated her social media campaign with increasingly dramatic posts about narcissistic abandonment and when successful men discard the women who supported them. On Wednesday morning, I published a single brief LinkedIn post: "When you become the punchline in your own home and your silence is mistaken for consent, you must eventually stand up. No one deserves to be mocked by those who claim to love them. Rebuilding with dignity starts with recognizing your worth. Reclaim your worth. Respect is not optional." I attached no images named, no names made, no accusations. Just a simple statement about self-respect. The post resonated far beyond my professional network. By Friday, it had nearly 60,000 shares and thousands of comments. Many from men and women sharing their own experiences with emotional abuse disguised as humor. I didn't engage with the comments or elaborate further. The message stood on its own. Meanwhile, I quietly sent a carefully curated package to the cosmetics company Chelsea had been negotiating with for a spokesperson deal. The package contained screenshots of her most demeaning posts about me, clips from her live streams mocking my appearance and intelligence, and a simple cover letter: "Is this the public image your brand wishes to associate with?" I sent similar documentation to her other major brand partners. Within days, the fallout began. The cosmetics company publicly withdrew their offer. A lifestyle magazine ran a feature on Chelsea Harper, the influencer built on body shaming and public humiliation. Former followers started digging deeper into her content history, uncovering more problematic posts and comments that extended beyond just mocking me. Chelsea's carefully constructed persona unraveled with stunning speed. She tried damage control first with tearful explanations about how everything was taken out of context, then by claiming she was the real victim of a smear campaign. Nothing stuck for Reed. I had a different approach. I compiled all the evidence of how he'd fraudulently used my name in investment pitches and forwarded it directly to Blue Forge's legal department and my own attorney. Eric helped ensure the company took it seriously, launching an internal investigation that quickly confirmed what we already knew. Reed was terminated from his agency, with immediate effect. The story circulated through industry networks, effectively blacklisting him from reputable agencies. His startup pitch evaporated as investors backed away from the taint of ethical violations. Throughout all this, I maintained public silence. I didn't gloat or engage in the social media storm surrounding Chelsea and Reed. I focused on setting up my new life and starting my position at Blueforge. I withdrew completely from personal social media for 2 weeks, letting the situation run its course without additional fuel from me. The consequences for Chelsea were particularly severe. As her professional opportunities dried up, internet sleuths began dissecting her content, discovering plagiarized captions, heavily edited photos presented as authentic, and more evidence of her mocking not just me, but friends and family members. Her carefully crafted image of authenticity collapsed completely. I wasn't seeking revenge, merely consequences. The difference might seem academic, but it mattered to me. I didn't want to destroy Chelsea. I just needed to ensure she couldn't continue painting me as the villain in her fictional narrative. On a rainy Friday evening, as I was arranging books on my new shelf properly built. This time, there was a knock at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Chelsea stood in the hallway, hair disheveled, face bare of makeup, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. She looked nothing like the polished influencer she presented online. Her voice was barely audible as she spoke. "I've lost everything. But I still don't understand why. Couldn't you forgive me?" I didn't invite Chelsea into my apartment that night. There was nothing to say that couldn't be said elsewhere on neutral ground. After she left, I texted her suggesting we meet the following Sunday at Lakeside Park, where we used to walk Milo, our chocolate lab, who'd passed away last year. Milo had been one of the few things Chelsea had genuinely loved without performance or agenda. When he died, her grief had been raw and real, perhaps the most authentic emotion I'd witnessed from her in years. If there was any place where we might have an honest conversation, it would be there. Sunday arrived with typical Seattle mist. Not quite rain, just a soft dampness in the air that settled on your skin. Chelsea was already sitting on our old bench when I arrived, the gray weather matching her subdued appearance. She wore no makeup, her hair pulled back, simply dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of her usual carefully curated outfits. I sat beside her, leaving appropriate space between us. For several minutes we said nothing, just watching joggers and dog walkers pass by. "I brought this," she finally said, pulling out a leather-bound notebook. "My therapist suggested journaling. I've been seeing her twice a week since everything." I nodded, but didn't reach for it. "I'm trying to understand why I needed to put other people down to feel valuable." She continued, her voice lacking its usual polish. "Especially you, the one person who actually cared about me." I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd grown so accustomed to detecting. But all I saw was exhaustion and something that might have been genuine self-reflection. "Did you ever love me?" I asked quietly, not what I represented, not what I could do for you. "Just me." Chelsea stared at the ground. "I thought I did. Now I'm not sure I know what love is supposed to be." She looked up, eyes wet. "Do we have any chance, Noah? Any chance at all?" I'd rehearsed this answer mentally for weeks, knowing the question would eventually come. "I don't hate you, Chelsea, but I can't go back to a place where I didn't exist as a person." Her face crumpled, not in the theatrical way she'd perfected for social media, but in the quiet, broken way of someone facing a truth they can't escape. She didn't sob or wail, just trembled slightly as tears tracked down her cheeks. "I understand," she whispered. "I wouldn't go back either." We sat in silence for a while longer before parting ways with a simple goodbye. No dramatics, no last-minute pleas or accusations. Just the quiet ending of something that had died long ago. 6 months later, after the mandatory separation period, I filed for divorce. My attorney was surprised by how straightforward the process was. I proposed an equitable division of assets. The house would be sold, proceeds split evenly. Chelsea made no counterclaims or demands. Our respective lawyers handled everything in a single session. When the judge asked if there were any disputes to resolve, both sides indicated there were none. The marriage that had begun with such hope 12 years earlier ended with the quiet tap of a judge's gavel. By then, I'd fully settled into my new life. My apartment had slowly transformed from a transitional space to a real home. Dark wood shelving lined the walls filled with books I'd always wanted to read, but never made time for black and white photographs. Landscapes I'd taken during weekend hiking trips hung in simple frames. My grandfather's old guitar, restored and restrung, had a place of honor on the wall. Each evening followed a simple ritual: cooking myself a proper meal, reading for an hour, playing guitar, or calling friends. No social media performances, no walking on eggshells, no bracing for the next humiliation. Just quiet authenticity. I began volunteering with a support group for men who had experienced psychological abuse in relationships. At first I just listened, but eventually I shared my own story. The relief in other men's eyes when they realized they weren't alone was profound. You put words to something I couldn't explain. One guy told me after a session, I kept thinking I was just too sensitive. Professionally, things progressed better than I could have imagined. After 10 months at Blue Forge, I was promoted to Regional Technical Director for the Northwest Division. I led a team expanding our operations into new markets, proving my worth through tangible results rather than self-promotion. Eric, who'd become a close friend again, joked that I'd gone from the most underrated guy in Seattle to the most respected guy in the office. I didn't need external validation anymore, but it was nice to be valued for my actual contributions. On the day we signed the final divorce papers, Chelsea and I had our last real conversation. As we gathered our documents, she looked at me with something like resignation. "Do you regret it?" "Any of it?" she asked. "No." I replied honestly, "I only regret that I didn't leave sooner." As I turned to leave the attorney's office, I paused at the door. "If you really are changing, Chelsea, do it for yourself, not to get someone back." She nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding passing across her face. Walking to my car afterward, I tilted my face up to the autumn sky. Golden leaves drifted down from the trees lining the street, catching the late afternoon sunlight. What I felt wasn't triumph or vindication. It was liberation. The lightness of finally being unburdened from a weight I'd carried for so long, I'd forgotten it wasn't natural. That night before sleeping, I wrote the final entry in the journal I'd kept throughout this journey. I'm no longer the clown. I'm a man, and finally I'm laughing because of it. The next morning I woke to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. As I made coffee and prepared for a new day at work, a simple truth settled in my mind, clear as crystal. Not everyone deserves your presence in their life, but you always deserve your freedom.